Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And Zafar, thank you for organizing this timely and quite important event. And thank you to all the eminent speakers who have already spoken and to those who are yet to follow. I believe that this discussion has been quite rich and has been quite thorough in terms of addressing the various aspects of the issue of Kashmir and from a variety of perspectives. I think the most important thing about what we all aim to do is basically to issue a call to action. I think that the facts are there. They're well known to all those who know anything about Kashmir, and particularly to those who are either attached to the case by being Kashmiris themselves, residing in Kashmir, visiting Kashmir, for instance, or those who are, like myself, interested in the fallout of Kashmir, the history of Kashmir, and the implications of this particular issue carrying on without a resolution. The fact is that ultimately speaking, we need to get something done, just like many before me spoke. And I'd like to say a few things about how Kashmir constitutes, by being unresolved, by being almost left indifferently by the international community, actually poses quite a problem for international law. It poses quite a problem for democracy. It poses quite a problem for human rights. All these maxims upon which let's say the Western part of the world, the Western construct of the world, the developed world, if you wish, are built upon: international law, democracy, human rights, freedoms, and the like. I mean, these are the things that the United Kingdom, the United States, Western Europe, and the such, they proclaim as being pillars of their societies. So imagine an issue such as Kashmir, which now enters its 73rd year, not only being unresolved, but with the actual wound being deepened by further crimes committed by the Modi government and the Modi regime and the Indian forces in Kashmir, almost with impunity, with no recourse. This is deeply troubling for all those maxims which we, for instance, in the United Kingdom or in the West, we uphold. And therefore, the question of Kashmir goes way beyond. I mean, we talked plenty and we can talk for hours more about the plight of the Kashmiri people, about the immense suffering that they face on a daily basis, the crimes that are committed systematically by the Indian regime. But actually, when we come to promote, and someone mentioned the word lobbying earlier on, when we come to promote or to advocate or to lobby for Kashmir, it must be brought to the attention of policymakers in the West that actually the issue of Kashmir goes far beyond Kashmir itself, and it touches on our own borders. As the entire world now enters into sort of a reflective sort of mood after the George Floyd murder in Minnesota in America and the Black Lives Matter now, we're rereading our own history. We're rediscovering our own identities. We're rediscovering how statues of people who were figures of our history and legacy actually were people who committed quite heinous crimes, such as slavery and murder and the such. I think it's quite important that adding to this, not separating from it, adding to this reflective mood is the issue of Kashmir. How is the world dealing with Kashmir? How is the world able to rest whilst the plight of the Kashmiris continues unabated on a daily basis? So this is something which is quite important. And without taking too long, I'd like to pose that the call to action must be made on three levels. The first is political. And I think that Sarah Owen speaking was quite clear and unconditional in terms of her own support and solidarity, but also quite interesting how she mentioned that cross parties in the United Kingdom, and I'm pretty sure the same goes for many European and probably even the United States, how they all support the issue of Kashmir. That must be brought to mean something. That must be brought to actually create some sort of momentum for Kashmir. Also, I mean, people, especially politicians, must be asked the question: where do you stand on Kashmir? Where do you stand on mass rape? Where do you stand on the pillaging and razing of villages, entire villages full of innocent people? Where do you stand on soldiers committing the most heinous of crimes? Where do you stand on that? Someone mentioned, unfortunately, the Arab states or Muslim states or the such. The vast majority are tied by interests. And today, unfortunately, economic and trade interests are quite important. And for some, they trump human rights. But I think that in countries where democracy, human rights are upheld, we must bring people to task. The second level is the legal. And this, I think, is very, very important. The ICC, as well as various commissions, legal commissions on human rights and the such in Geneva and elsewhere, must also be brought into play. And, the issue of Kashmir must be at the top of every single agenda for these institutions and these organizations. It must be sought that cases be brought before the ICC regarding the crimes being committed against Kashmir. And on this particular level, I would like to mention something important for those within Kashmir, inside Kashmir. And I know it's difficult, but it's very, very important. We need two things. The first is we need stories and testimonies, real-time stories and testimonies. The mainstream media seem to have sort of forgotten about Kashmir. We need people as much as possible, especially the young, because they're most capable and most inventive and creative, to actually act as community journalists and to actually go around with their mobile phones, with their small cameras, and to actually take pictures, take images, document the time, the place, and the events, who is involved, who is not, and the such, and provide them for the world to see. And there are many, many platforms now. You don't need to go through the BBC or CNN or the such. You can create your own news platform on Kashmir. But most importantly, and this is where I'm still talking about the legal level, it's very, very important that these crimes are documented for the cases to be brought before the ICC, meaning they need to be documented in a manner which is adequate to bringing in a legal case. The second is we need to gather testimonies. The people who can actually bring a case are usually either the relatives or those affected by the crimes being committed. It is crucial that some sort of database is created of these crimes, those who were killed, those who were disappeared, and the such, with the kind of diligence and the kind of accuracy that is befitting the criteria of the ICC. Sometimes one single case out of the thousands and thousands of the crimes committed, sometimes it takes one case to bring down an important general or an important figure within the political structure in India or the such, or at least to issue a notice of fear that we are coming after you. We will not let this go. This is, I think, quite important. And the third level, and here I will finish, is the popular level. Most people, unfortunately, and our friend Qamar Zaman from Malaysia said that very few people in Malaysia know much about the issue of Kashmir. I would, unfortunately, go further and say that that would be true for the majority of countries around the world. The reason is because, unfortunately, the media has chosen other stories, because this is something which is not of real interest and the such. It is vital that we recreate the narrative and that we bring this issue to the popular attention. We need to get the support of trade unions around the world. We need to get the support of humanitarian campaigns around the world. We need to get the support of people who advocate for democracy and human rights and for women's rights and for children's rights and the such. We need to bring Kashmir to the fore. So when we work on the political, legal, and popular levels, I believe that then the establishments who have chosen to conveniently neglect Kashmir will be forced some way or another to actually pay attention, or at least to pay lip service, which will be a first step towards, hopefully, inshallah, creating the kind of track that we need in order to free Kashmir and its people. Thank you so much.